This is the Rest of Everest video podcast, an almost unabridged expedition experience.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Rest of Everest bonus episode. This is part 2 of a slideshow called Wild Horses, and I guess you'll see why it's called Wild Horses in a little bit. Joining me again is Ben Clark. How you doing, Ben?
What's up, John? I'm fantastic.
Good. Ben's been eating some tortilla chips with some insanely hot salsa, so he's probably tearing up a little bit right now. Anyway, so let's get back into Sichuan province here, and let's rejoin the climb to on Celestial Peak, and let's see what other amazing things you experienced over there. So let's dig right back in. Here we go. All right, so this was the slide that we ended on the last episode. You want to just refresh people's memories about what this image is all about?
Yeah, sure, John. Yeah, what we were doing here was we're looking at a slide that I took of this peak that we had come in all the way to the Sichuan province in China to attempt. And we don't have maps because they're only available to the Chinese Army. We don't have consistent or really reliable information as to how to get around these mountains, and we're just now getting a chance after having hiked for 2 days to see one of the mountains that we had hoped to come and find in good condition for climbing. And as you can see, this mountain pretty much isn't. It's got more snow than is really worth dealing with in terms of trying to put a route up on it. It is a large granite slab, and what you're looking at is powder stuck to it and choking a lot of the cracks.
Give me an idea of scale here, Ben. How many meters is that, or how many feet?
I believe we're at about 12,000 feet looking at this face, and it goes up to 16.
Okay.
Well, what you can see goes to 16, and it goes on beyond that to somewhere above 18,000 feet. So you're looking at about this particular wall in total, from what you can see, is probably around, I would say at least 3,200 feet tall. It's about the size of an El Capitan in Yosemite. And so these are big mountains with enormous granite faces. And we didn't know what the granite might be like, and as a climber you want to know, well, what are you going to use for protection? What's the most reliable way to go about doing this? Is the rock solid? So you want decent conditions, and alpine's always in, so sometimes if you go in and you can't find a mountain that presents itself in a way that you feel is climbable, since we're way out on the edge with absolutely no safety net on this, then you look around. So that's what we did. We bedded down that night and woke up the next morning, and here we are still at tree line. So we're still far below the summit of these peaks and surrounded by these beautiful tamarack trees. And then I saw these two thorns sitting up there on the left side, and I thought, well, why don't we go and attempt to climb one of those? And my partner Josh Butson, who is a fellow guide that I work with at the San Juan Outdoor School, and he and I decided, since we were on this thing, that we'd just go and give everything a look. And so we had crept a long way into this valley, and what really established this particular valley, which didn't have a name for most, was just sort of the foliage was really, really thick. And as we had hoped to get to that little thorn on the left, we started our day, around 8 o'clock, and it was some of the thickest bushwhacking I have ever done in my life. It was like full-body hiking to an extent that we spent several hours inside these enormous bushes just trying to figure out where on earth we were, and really didn't have any idea until we finally popped out, and we were at least near this thorn, but still a couple of thousand feet below it, and eventually got to where it was just sort of this late fall, early winter condition where you would find lots of large granite blocks with sort of just a light pillow of snow over the top of them. They would grab your ankles if you weren't careful. After all that bushwhacking, which took hours, we got into this thing, and it was just sort of this rotten snow that we would pound up to like our knees at times in this really steep gully full of all of these rocks. And so at that point, we just decided to keep a positive attitude and just keep going. So we called that the Field of Love Gully because it was brutal popping up through that thing for about probably, 1,000 feet or so, maybe 1,200. And finally, though, in the lower left-hand portion of your screen, we topped out, and then we started heading over towards the center of this photograph up onto sort of a snowy ledge. And we'd hoped what we might find on the left side of this peak was some featured rock that would have cracks in it, because the whole right side of it did not have anything like that. And so part of it is you're looking for what can we climb that we can actually protect, because we're going to be climbing in like approach shoes or big stiff mountaineering boots, and we climbed with a backpack on, and typically it was really cold, so we'd have to climb with gloves. And because of that, you might find yourself in a situation like this, where I'm 80 feet off the ground without a single piece of protection yet, climbing in gloves. And I think that was finally the first spot where I found a place for me to put in a camming device that was about the size of maybe 2 fingers put together. And so not really big. And we didn't know until we got there that that would be the case, because there was no information. And we just went in there to have a good time. We didn't really care if it was hard or easy. We just thought it would be fun to try and climb it. But basically what we learned from that little foray onto that thorn was that the rock climbing was going to be pretty high-end. It was going to be very slabby and featureless granite that feels sticky to the touch, but doesn't have a lot of holds for you to use or a lot of features for you to use for protection, which is a pretty important part of it, but was really good and did have lines that would have enough cracks and features to be climbed. But on this day, on that particular one, not so much. So I went up there, put my one piece of protection in, and then found a spot about 30 feet above that. And the climbing ended up being 5.9 plus R. Obviously, it was pretty run out and risked a huge ground fall. And so from there, I rappelled down, and we set our sights on looking around the valley. Part of this type of climbing being exploratory is you should just get out, have fun, climb, look around, and our goal was to see what would actually be high up in this valley. And very quickly we had gone from, Chengdu to these peaks. And this peak across from us caught our eye. We decided that we would try and climb the large snowy ramp you see kind of bisecting that entire peak. And so we dropped down into the valley and looked around a little bit more, poked our heads around, and saw these amazing granite peaks everywhere that were just enormous, enormous walls. And this is a shot of Sichuan. This is the back side of the mountain we hoped to climb, and we felt really privileged to get to see something that beautiful just kind of sitting out there. And so we woke up the next morning and got right back after it. And the thing about this area and this little unnamed valley in the Changping-Go Valley of Sichuan province is that it is always steep. There's no sort of easy ways to get around or just to sort of hike. It's always going to be adventurous. And, typically it's got so much rock over there that it's going to turn into a rock climb at some point. So here I am climbing in that really great pack from Osprey, and then those plastic boots. And finally find our way into that ramp of snow, and we just were having a good time. Bottom line is just that this stuff is really fun. And so we enjoyed kind of scrambling into some stuff, and then we had this one move we called the Bronco, because you had to kind of scoot around this rock to get over this little shoulder on a ridge in order to get around to sort of the upper shaded section of that photograph where you see snow. And that was a really beautiful spot. Josh and I were climbing, and we had gained about probably 3 to 4,000 feet of elevation. We weren't really sure. So we didn't have a map or that kind of stuff. And we had just continued on up into that thing. It was sort of this steep, snowy gully that we got to see something up there I've never seen anywhere. This is a photo of a hawk, or actually a falcon, sorry. And this photo of a falcon was taken right after this falcon collided with another falcon, hit it, and actually robbed it of 2 feathers, which we thought was a pretty remarkable thing to see around, 17,500 to 18,000 feet. So that's why we decided to call that peak the Falcon. That and the summit looked like a falcon's head with this giant sort of wingish-looking ridgeline, summit ridge that you can see right behind Josh climbing there. And so we just kind of continued up on that ridge, just, running around on this sort of sticky powder on the top of these granite boulders. And finally got the opportunity to be the first person to ever climb that mountain. And share that summit with Josh was phenomenal. And so that was the first unclimbed mountain that we got to do over there. It's a pretty incredible place. But you always got to get down once you go up. And that's what became probably the most harrowing portion of that entire climb, was once we got down, there was this guy. This is a bull that we had seen a couple of times in the valley, but he hadn't bothered us. And we'd come across him that morning and scared him off, and he just lived up there by himself. There weren't any other animals in there except for maybe some small, kind of antelope-looking creatures that rolled around the cliffs, and then the occasional eagle or falcon. Well, 5 minutes after we got into camp from having done that route, which was a 6,000-foot long climb from that valley, and took us, we were all the way back down by it was about 8 hours after we started. And he decided he'd roll into our camp. We did, and then we didn't think much of it until he started coming over the tent and pawing at the ground, and then he started sharpening his horns on his tamarack tree. So Josh and I ran right on across the river there, stood there with our ice axes, both of us trembling, thinking we were, one of us was going to get hit by this thing. Both of us were going to have to run in a different direction and hope that we were able to get one ice tool in that guy's eye if he tried to mess with us, because it was pretty wild in there. And so he finally left. We packed up, and we headed on back down that valley and into this little base camp, which was the first place where we were able to see people again, and that led us to a pretty heated discussion about whether or not we were going to get to climb Mount Sigunion to 5,000 meters.
And let's save that heated discussion for next episode. How's that sound?
Perfect.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Ben, and look forward to seeing probably the last episode. I'm guessing there's only one more episode left in this bonus series. Excuse me, everyone. I'm really sick. Okay, so give us a little glimpse at what we're going to be seeing next time.
Yeah, John, so what you guys will be seeing from here is exactly where we got back in that valley. You there?
Yep, I'm here. Just looking at the screens. Pretty amazing stuff. Sort of makes me stop talking just looking at the photos. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place. Beautiful place.
All right. Well, we look forward to it. So everyone, just keep checking your. If you're using iTunes, keep checking iTunes. Make sure you haven't missed a download. Sometimes iTunes will download only the most recent one. Even if you put out more than one per day, it will only download the last one you've released. So just make sure that you're getting everything. Make sure you don't miss the regular podcast episodes of Everest. And just want to make sure you guys get to see all of this, because it's one-of-a-kind stuff. It's really interesting, and I hope you're enjoying it. So thanks so much, Ben.
Thank you, John. Hope you guys have a great night.
All right. We'll see you next time, everyone. Bye. As always, our announcer is Marlon May, and our music is provided by Wendy Wu. Check her out at wendywu.com. Thanks so much, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching The Rest of Everest. For more information on the expedition, please visit therestofeverest.com.